by clicking on our ad at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
WTIM. Good morning, Central Illinois, and welcome to the WTIM Morning Show on your information station. The show is sponsored by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville. I'm your host, Reed Kamai, and this is our first WTIM Morning Show since the State of the State address that took place yesterday at in Springfield. Is where that took place. A lot riding on that, and so I think that's the timing that was had in mind when we scheduled Dr. Kent Redfield, the professor of political science at the University of Illinois Springfield, to come on to our show. And so Dr. Redfield joins us by phone. Thanks so much for coming on.
Good to be here.
Yeah, no, it's good to talk to you. So, looking back at that State of the State address yesterday, and Governor J.B. Pritzker, he did lay out about halfway into the speech. And once he started talking about the budget, he declared that there would be an ever so slight increase in spending, but cuts to some of the programs that he had started and taken some pride in when he was in office. Now, I imagine still, with the loss of the pandemic era relief funding that had been coming in, that they're still going to have to look for revenue elsewhere. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, there's going to be huge pressure because when you say, we're only going to increase 0.5%, then you say, okay, that's kind of the same money we've been living with, but inflation, costs go up, and so holding the line really means that you're going to have to reduce, your spending is going to not get you as far, and so when you get down to the program level, we've got more money for schools and the program to take new money and put it through that evidence-based formula. But if you get 1% more money and have 3% inflation, in your costs, you're losing ground. So people that wanted more spending are not happy. People who think that we ought to be, drastically cutting spending, they're not happy that we're not doing more than just standing in place. And so it's not a happy time compared to when we had a lot of revenue growth and federal money coming in for COVID. Really different atmosphere completely.
Yeah, so that's a change that I know you've talked about plenty on this program, that the state, that the administration would at least have to consider adjusting for. And it's seeming like, kind of from what you're saying, from what was said yesterday, that there hasn't really been a whole lot of adjustment.
Yeah, it's just there are huge pressures coming from the people in the state that are providing healthcare, education, those kinds of programs. But then, what's going on at the federal level, you've got a lot of clawback in terms of money that was, in the federal budget that the Trump administration has been trying to reduce, or in some cases cancel that spending. And so, the governor frames it by saying, well, we've lost $8 billion of money that we were promised, that your taxes went to DC and a budget was passed. And so, whether you agree with the numbers, that kind of frames what, how people are looking at the situation. And, we're going to put, we've got a plan to pay down pension debt. We're going to do almost $200 million more paying off pension debt, but there certainly are people that are saying this isn't sustainable. We really need to somehow find a way to reduce that so that we've got taking this money to pay off the mistakes that were made in terms of how we funded pensions. We could take that money, put it somewhere else. But, there are lots of people, that are in the pension system, either retired or working, that obviously, don't want to, they'll turn around and say, well, you're balancing the budget on our back. And, how come other people aren't there? So it's a difficult situation and a lot of pressure because, they're going away for the, there won't be much going on till the primary is over in, March 17th. Then they've got to get a budget before the end of May, or they'll be in a situation where instead of a simple majority, they'll need a supermajority to get it in place. So we'll actually have a budget. And, so you got people with a lot of pressure, and this just dominates. It makes things like, how are we going to keep the bears in Illinois? That's important, I think for a lot of different reasons, but, it's the fire that you're fighting right at the moment that gets everybody's attention.
Yeah, that's been a big talking point as well. And you mentioned the primaries. That actually leads me to another big factor of this State of the State address, and one that makes it actually quite fascinating for folks who are interested in this sort of thing, where it also comes in an election year. J.B. Pritzker is running for re-election to governor. And I'm curious if you noticed any parts of the speech where it seemed like, he clearly had his re-election run in mind when he was laying out his thoughts.
Yeah, when you do the State of the State particularly, and this is a combination of the two, then that's an opportunity to say, here's the terrible budget and situation I inherited 8 years ago. Now we're in my eighth budget, and here's all of the, how bad things were, and how much we've done, and that's, incumbents always want to talk about, how things are going great, and so you could thank me for that. Then, the speech turns to, here are all of these problems that we have to deal with, that we are going to have to come up with innovative solutions, and we're going to have austerity in order to kind of work our way through. And, somebody characterized this as kind of, the speech that goes, you've never had it so good, and I'm the only person that can get us out of this mess. And so it tends to be a little bit of a mixed message when you're trying to, play on both of those themes. And so, the governor does that very well in terms of framing things and making those transitions. But it's still, it's about campaign. He's certainly going to win the Democratic nomination. He'll be favored to get reelected. But in the background, there's all of this talk about 2020 to 2028 and, who's running for president. And so, I think his pushback against the Trump administration, particularly in terms of how he sees the efforts to, on immigration, that's heartfelt. That's obviously an important topic, but it also frames what's likely to be a big part of the presidential election in 2028, regardless of whether he's part of that conversation or not.
And yeah, you mentioned the 2028 race. The last numbers I had seen in terms of polling, and this is from some months ago, I think they had J.B. Pritzker at best 5%. Now, a lot's happened since then. Of course, you have the State of the State address. You have the way that the Trump administration's immigration policy has been carried out, where it's put Illinois in the spotlight in a bit. What are you hearing in terms of his 2028 chances at this point?
Well, he certainly, obviously he's not a front runner. He's in the conversations, And so, whether he rises is partially a function of what he does, but it's also a function of what happens when the more prominent voices, the governor of California, Newsom, is probably the one that has the highest polling. How does he feel? He gets the attention, and when you get the attention, some people shine and some people wilt. And so as you get different people that will, kind of step up and see their opportunity, then you have, a winnowing out. But will we get to the state situation like we did, in 2016 on the Republican side when we had, the main debate with 10 or 12 people, and then the second tier debate with another 6 or 8 people. And so these things can get very crowded, and you have to look for your opportunity. Nobody thought Barack Obama was going to be president of the United States 2 years before he ran and won. And so you never say never, and that's what we're seeing here. Pritzker's doing the things that will get him elected, that he thinks helps out Democrats nationally, and that might have a long-term payoff. But an awful lot of water under the bridge.
Well, we will see how that plays out. We've seen stranger things in the national politics scene. That is, of course, with Dr. Kent Redfield, professor of political science at the University of Illinois Springfield. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation here on the WTIM Morning Show on your information station.
Your information station, WTIM.
The Lady Tornado basketball team are on 96.5 TheChill.com again this season. Listen on air or online for Lady Tornado basketball and playoff games brought to you by the Taylorville Community Credit Union, the Christian County YMCA, Rural Rentals, and Scooters Coffee.
The purple and gold are coming your way. The Taylorville Tornadoes are going to do it today.
Does your bank offer rewards on qualified signature-based debit card purchases? If not, then we need to talk. Hi, my name is Julie Sanchez with People's Bank and Trust. Join the growing number of our customers who are earning cash back on all qualifying debit card purchases. You already use your debit card. Now make it work for you with Save by Spending rewards from People's Bank and Trust. Earning rewards is as easy as shop, sign, and save. Call 888-PBT-1954 and find out more about our Save by Spending rewards program today. People's Bank and Trust, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Hello, I'm Will Perkins, the new owner of Taylorville Home Source. I'm committed to continuing the local service you've always counted on, along with the same great flooring options, kitchen cabinets, shower systems, and design expertise that Taylorville Home Source is known for. Stop by 1316 East Park, online at TaylorvilleHomesource.com, or via phone at 217-824-6121. Taylorville Home Source, your one source local design center.
As America celebrates its 250th birthday, Prairie Farms is honoring the heroes who serve our country and our communities. We're proud to commit $250,000 to the Folds of Honor Foundation by providing life-changing scholarships for the children and spouses of fallen or disabled service members and first responders. Look for special Folds of Honor labels on Prairie Farms white milk gallons and half gallons at your local grocery store. Then visit prairiefarms.com to learn more. Help us support those who sacrifice so much by choosing locally made Prairie Farms milk.
Hi everyone, Nicole Patrick here, your local country financial representative at 1305 West Bresser in Taylorville. I'm proud to recognize the Tornado student athletes that represent our community by being the exclusive sponsor of the WTIM Nicole Patrick Country Financial Player of the Game. During Tornado Sports broadcasts this school year, WTIM announcers will select a player at the end of each game who will receive a certificate for being named our Player of the Game. Good luck to all the teams this season, and go Tornadoes!
This is Perry Stanfa, owner of Central Illinois Truck Service in Greenville. Winter is coming. Get your rig ready to roll by booking your winter diesel engine service now. Book your appointment by clicking our icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Wellness starts with prevention. Book your annual appointment online today with SIU Center for Family Medicine in Taylorville by clicking their icon on TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Your information station, WTIM.
Welcome back to the WTIM Morning Show on your information station. The show is sponsored by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville. I'm Reed Kamai, and I continue my conversation with Dr. Kent Redfield, the professor of political science at the University of Illinois Springfield. And this conversation comes one day after Governor J.B. Pritzker's State of the State address. He gave the address. He laid out the budget for the next fiscal year, and so they'll have to vote on that in the coming months. Now, we were talking a little bit during the break about sort of what the role is as far as the minority party in the General Assembly is, the GOP. Dr. Redfield, what are they really going to be able to do about this budget, or at least parts of it, being the minority party?
Because the Republicans are in a super minority, or the Democrats have a super majority, then they don't have the votes, particularly in a situation where you only need a simple majority. As long as the Democrats get this done and agree to something, then they don't need any Republican votes. If you had a huge fallout that where you were down to having trouble getting, say, 60 votes in the House, then Republican crossovers could become important. We see that nationally in the House of Representatives with a very narrow Republican majority, and so things can go back and forth. Mostly what the Republicans are going to be doing is, using the bully pulpit to talk about specific shortcomings in the budget, and then try to raise the theme that the Democrats really are not acting in your best interests, and you need to start we need to be thinking about those competitive races, and there are competitive races where they have a chance to pick up some seats and stuff. So it gets framed, and because of that, the Democrats are going to be pretty cautious. Governor had a whole list of initiatives about healthcare and housing and insurance costs, and primarily they were things that were kind of regulatory policy. They didn't require money. Nobody wants to propose new spending. They don't want to do it before this election. They'll be cautious in terms of putting the budget together. How is this going to play in the fall when we're making state finances an issue in races for, certainly the governor's race, will be competitive, and a number of legislative races. So it's don't do any damage at this point. Don't give your opponent something that they can use to beat you over the head, and that frustrates people who want to solve problems and say, aren't there bipartisan compromises? Can't we get together and do things that would improve access to health care, or how do we get a handle on different property taxes? Again, we don't talk a lot about property taxes, but until we really try to redo the way we fund local government in Illinois, nothing is going to happen. So a lot of frustration among people who want to, how are we going to solve things? Frustration in terms of the Democrats, because the Republicans, and then the Democratic, there are lots of Democrats that want to raise more revenue and fund,
That's right.
Fund programs, and it's not going to happen, at least in the short term.
Yeah, that's Dr. Kent Redfield, professor of political science at the University of Illinois Springfield. Dr. Redfield, thanks for coming on.
Certainly. Good to talk to you.
The Big 870 WTIM Assumption Taylorville. 96.1 FM Taylorville. 107.5 FM Shelbyville. 107.9 FM Pena Nokomis.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. Former British Prince Andrew's arrest in the UK is the latest fallout from the Jeffrey Epstein case.
The Thames Valley Police said Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was suspected of misconduct in public office. The force, which covers areas west of London, said it was assessing reports that the former Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor sent trade reports to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein in 2010. The police force did not name Mountbatten Windsor as is normal under UK law, but when asked if